everybody. Welcome back to another great episode of the Silver Lyming. My name is Anne Desjardins. I'm your host here. I'm also a Lyme survivor. I had gone through my own ordeal with Lyme and tick-borne illness, in which it took me 7 years to get a diagnosis and another 7 years to fix myself. And through my experience, I have made some of the most incredible friends. This is one of the best communities I can possibly think of belonging to, and I'm so honored to have the two guests that I have with me today. These are people that I've gotten to know through my Lyme journey. And without Lyme, I wouldn't have met these wonderful people. And so oftentimes I like to put the frame around Lyme in that it's not all bad. There is a lot of good that comes out of it. And again, the community is one of the best gifts that I've been given through this experience. Today I have with me Tanya Hoebel. She hosts another podcast called Lyme and Beyond with Tanya. She was a former guest on my show as well. And I also have with me Fred Diamond. He was also a former guest. He is the author of Love, Hope, and Lyme. He has a podcast with the same name, as well as the Sales Game Changers, in which I was a guest on that podcast, but we've never done one specifically on his Love, Hope, Lyme show. So it's just an honor to have him here, and we're doing some things together, which is really a lot of fun. We got to meet each other in person most recently at the ILADS conference in San Antonio, Texas. And it's just something that, again, it's almost like surreal. I feel like I want to cry a little bit. I had met Fred a few times in person before, but never Tanya. And when you get the opportunity to meet these people in person, it really just like solidifies the relationship. Not that it wasn't solid and strong before, but it just really makes it like, oh my gosh, this is my person. This is the person that I've known for so long, that I've spoken to and shared so many thoughts and ideas with. And again, to have that connection deepened is a really great gift in and of itself. And so we had been brainstorming together, and we're trying to think of ways that we could potentially work with each other in our efforts to have podcasts to help to educate people in the Lyme community, because that's one of the other gifts that we can make out of this, is the fact that we can educate people through our struggles and through our experiences. And Fred and Tanya both have had a little bit of a different perspective. Tanya having gone through it directly herself, Fred having gone through it through the eyes of a loved one and experiencing it that way as a support person and someone who's been deeply impacted through it, just from having an experience of watching a loved one go through it. And it's really amazing to see what both of these individuals have created out of their experience. And we thought to share with you some different ideas and some of the best healing tips that we know to help you to further yourselves in your endeavors of healing. Because having gone through it, all three of us, we know what it looks like, how dark and lonely it can be, how overwhelming, how sad, how just many different facets of what chronic illness can look like in terms of a negative perspective. But we both, all three of us, know you can heal and you can get better. And again, just through our own trials and tribulations, we've come up with obviously quite a few different, like a laundry list of ideas in terms of ways that you can heal yourself and support your loved ones. And so this is again an effort to share some of those ideas, some of the top ideas that stick out to us as ways that you can support yourself. And so I'm not sure which one of the two of you wants to go first with this conversation, but I'll let you duke it out. Fred, Tanya, who wants to go first?
I'd love to hear what Tanya has to say, but it's great to be here with you, Anne, and I look forward to the conversations.
Me too. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Anne. And it's always a pleasure to see you guys. And like you mentioned, there are so many blessings that come from this journey, but oftentimes in the darkest moments, we can't see that. And so, like you said, it just kind of not solidified, right? Like just deep into the friendship of being able to meet both of you guys just recently at the ILADS conference. And it just was truly amazing. I'm a hugger, and it was just nice to grab you both and just hug you and just see you in person. And I truly just appreciate everything both of you guys do, because our voices need to be heard. We need to share others that are going through this journey, because whether it's on the loved one caregiving side or the actual Lyme warrior fighting the battle itself, all of this information needs to be shared. So I'm excited that we're collaborating and going to do this episode together and just share our tips from both sides. So thank you so much for doing this and having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
yeah.
go. I'm sorry.
So do you want me just to kind of dive in some of the tips that I've kind of have helped me along my journey, right? We all know that we're so different. And so some things may not resonate with you. Some things may work well for you. Some things may not work well for you. But again, it's just all about sharing experiences, information that we have oftentimes had to learn the hard way, right? And so we're trying to make it easier for you guys listening that we have some tips that we can share with you. So I know one of them for me, and I talk about it a lot, is our nervous system. It is absolutely dysregulated when you're going through any type of a chronic illness. And I know firsthand going through the Lyme journey. And oftentimes people don't realize what a huge piece that the nervous system is, right? Like a lot of times people think it's that fight or flight mode or rest and digest, which it is. But what does that really mean, right? Like, why do we need to be concerned with our nervous system? And the best thing about it is that there are tons of ways that you can support it at home for free or for a few dollars, next to nothing. And that's the beauty of some of these incredible tools that we're going to share today, because we have to allocate our financial resources. We just do, right? We have to allocate our energy resources. So there's so many things that we have to allocate during this journey. So I personally always love to just be able to offer free tips of things that we can utilize at home, whether it's going outside and earthing and being in the sun, whatever it may be. So for me, to help with my nervous system during my journey, I love sound therapy. It could be music bowls. It could be just frequencies of music, just music in general. And a lot of these things that I'll talk about, you can find a lot of information on YouTube, right? If I don't give you enough for you to kind of take off with your own journey. But I also love tuning forks. So I have, my preference is 128 hertz tuning fork, and it literally comes with this little mallet for less than $10 on Amazon. There's nothing special you need to buy. This tool has been one of the biggest game changers for me, even after my Lyme journey, because I utilize it on certain acupressure points on my body that help my nervous system. And my biggest benefit I got from it, it is the only tool that has truly allowed me to have a deep sleep every single night. And that is huge. In the beginning of my journey, I was on prescription sleep meds. I was on prescription opioids. Unfortunately, oftentimes we have to do what we have to do, or we don't know any better, right? And so this tool has been incredible for me. Breathing techniques. There are so many of them out there. I don't know what it's called, the one that I prefer, but I prefer to use the one where I breathe in through my nose for a count of 4, pause, and breathe out my mouth for a count of 8. And again, this is a free tool. We can do it anytime. If we're working during our journey, we can do it driving. There's just no limit to how you can utilize these breathing tools. And they are incredible. They sound silly, but they're very impactful. Humming is another one. And this is something I started doing. And I'm like, this is kind of feels weird. And so I listen to a lot of music during my day. And so instead of singing out loud, which nobody wants to hear, not even myself most of the time, but humming is fabulous. And so I've been humming along kind of the melody of the song, and just do it a couple minutes, a couple different times a day. It literally will open up your neural pathways. It can help reduce your oxidative stress. It can slow down your breathing, right? It can just raise your nitric oxide, right? Which is kind of the blood flow through your body. Super important. We can get better circulation by this. So it just really is, sounds so simple, and it is, and it's free. And so those are some of the ways that I love to support my nervous system, and even including, which I'm kind of chicken, but the last couple minutes of your shower, turn it to cold. That helps to activate our nervous system as well, right? But I'm kind of chicken. I'm not really good at that one. So whatever tools work for you, just know how important our nervous system is during this journey. If we are in this fight and flight mode, it's like we're in this toxic part of our body, and you truly can't heal when you're there. And so this is kind of like the groundwork, right? Like start working on that nervous system.
Yep. Those are great tips, Tanya. And one thing I was also thinking about with humming is that when you're humming, you can't hold thoughts in your head. So it's like it like mutes your mind, that monkey mind that's kind of all over the place, jumping from here to there, having these thoughts about, am I ever gonna get better? Is this gonna work? Is this gonna be, I can't do this, la la. Just start humming and it totally neutralizes that. It blocks those thoughts from coming into the mind for a little bit just to give yourself some respite from the monkey mind.
I love that because I think we all, like, life is busy, right? We all have a hard time kind of shutting down our brain.
Yeah,
That's great. I love it. So I'm going to hum just when I can't shut my brain down.
great. Right. And plus it's all those other benefits that you listed that are in effect with at the same time. So that's a
Exactly.
great tip. Hmm.
So one of the other ones that I love, and again, I don't know if it has a name, I call it the five thing tool, tip, whatever it is. So during my journey, I dealt a lot with anxiety and I dealt a lot with whether you want to call it depersonalization, derealization. It was either I felt like I was in the Groundhog movie, right? That, or oftentimes I'd think about, oh, was so and so really coming to my house for dinner tonight? Or did I dream it? Like I never really knew if I was in reality or if I was just in another world. And I know from an outsider that might be really hard to kind of comprehend what I'm saying. But for any of us in this Lyme journey, I really think that you can relate to it, whether I'm saying the wording right or not. And so what worked for me is, again, I call it the five thing tip, is so and you again can do this anywhere and it's free. I pick five things that I can physically see from where I am sitting, whether it be the refrigerator or the couch or the TV, just five actual objects that are in my view. And then I find four things that I can touch. So, do you want to touch your hair, your blanket? Find four things that you can touch, three things that you can hear, whether it's music, birds chirping, the television, whatever it may be, and then two things that you can smell. So do you want to get up and, smell something out of your refrigerator or whatever it is that you can smell and then taste one thing. So take a drink of water or, a juice or whatever it is. And for me, that allowed me to really just be in me and in the moment and understand, we have that old phrase like something amazing happens. Let me pinch me and see if I'm dreaming or if this is real, right? For me, that was the technique that really kind of allowed me to come back in within myself and know that I am safe and this is my real environment. So the other one is baths. I always love baths, but a lot of us, we deal with a lot of pain during our journey. And I know that a lot of people utilize Epsom salt baths, which can be great. Magnesium flake baths can also be wonderful and oftentimes possibly safer for you even if you are just somebody who's extra sensitive to treatment, and we know that that happens a lot, and it seems to be happening more and more frequently with people being really sensitive, magnesium flake bath might be a better option for you. And the thing that has always stuck with me and both of my Lyme practitioners impressed this upon me is that you want to get in the bath, as hot or as super warm as you can tolerate, right? That's very comfortable, but you want to limit it to 20 minutes. 20 minutes, get out. And there is a couple of reasons for that. One, our pores are very dilated at this point, and the toxic water, can be seeping back into our skin, which obviously, we don't want that. Also, our lymphatic system slows down a little bit when those blood vessels are being dilated for a certain amount of time. So baths are wonderful. They can be very helpful, but please be sure to limit them to the 20 minutes. And then the other thing I like is, and this could cost a couple of dollars, but I love massage therapy. So we can do this on our own, right? I have a couple of different massagers. I have this little handheld one that I don't know, Amazon, $10 maybe. Um, it's great for massaging your vagus nerve, right? That does so many things. Different lymph nodes. We have over 500 lymph nodes throughout our body, and our lymphatic system can get very congested when we are battling with Lyme disease. And so we want to make sure it's flowing. You know, a lot of people hear about Vibe plates that are fabulous to stand on, and they are. And a lot of people do lymphatic drainage massages, which are great. But again, we're trying to allocate our financial resources during this journey. So, little handheld massage, you can YouTube kind of the areas where most of our lymph nodes are, our neck, our armpits, our chest, our groin, our abdomen. Again, going back to the vagus nerve, it stimulates the nervous system, right? So again, we always want to work on our nervous system. It lowers our inflammation, which we know will help with our pain. It can improve your digestion. It can improve your sleep. It can relax your body. There's just so many benefits to it. And so if you're sitting in bed and you can't do anything, take a little massager and massage it around yourself, right? Or even just push with your fingers if you don't have the access to a little massager. And then I guess my last and final one is, you know, it's interesting going through the years and doing all of the advocating I've done in the community and learning different personalities. And I'm pretty sure most of us with Lyme disease, we're very like OCD or type A or right. Like I kind of figured that out during this journey. And I don't like to ask for help, nor do I really like to accept help for a couple of reasons. I'm very independent, or maybe it's, I don't really know what you can do to help me because I can't really help myself. And so, in general, in life, when we're out living our life and working our busy lives, what do we want to focus on? We want to focus on plans. We want to focus on vacations, maybe retirement, whatever it is. It is always such a good idea to have something to look forward to. And we truly can look forward to something even in the darkest of our days during this journey. So, just an example for me, one thing that really stood out to me was I had a friend who would constantly come over and wanted to help me. And I don't know how you can help me. You can't go to the grocery store because I have to read all the labels because I can't eat this, I can't eat that. You know, what can she do for me? And one of the hardest things for me to do when I was up and mobile during my journey was to change the sheets on my bed. It just was hard. My arms, my elbows mostly were in so much pain. I could never get the fitted sheet down over it. And so once a week, she would come to my house and put on fresh, clean sheets for me. And then, of course, I want to grab out a fresh pair of jammies, right, to put on there. And I can't tell you, like, actually, I don't even know why. I kind of feel like I'm having tears to my eyes because it seems so simple to somebody to be able to do that. And I know that my friend truly wanted to help me. And we found a way that she could help me and support me. And it was one of the highlights of my week because I'm a kind of a jammy, comfy, cozy girl, and I want clean jammies and clean sheets. I mean, who can't say on the day that you change your sheets during the week is like the extra best night of sleep, right? For me, it is. And that was just something simple that meant the world to me. So I guess what I'm trying to say is your loved ones want to help you. Maybe they don't know how. Maybe we don't know how. Find something that you can look forward to during your journey and allow somebody who loves you to help you make that possible.
I love these tips, Tanya, especially because it is, as we know, going through it, it's an incredibly expensive journey in so many ways, but financially. And so, like, you've just listed some really great options that I'm sitting here, I'm like, yep, yep, yep. Like, I did these things. They jive with me too. And it's like, and they are very low cost options and ways to help yourself in a very important way. And you're touching on so many different levels. Like, it's not just physical healing, but there's also the emotional and spiritual component to it as well. And your ideas kind of dive into all three of those realms. And I love that as well because as much as we like to look at chronic illness as like a physical manifestation, we know all too well that it's much deeper than that, and it goes all the way to the core, to the soul's being. And we have to tackle some inner demons to help to release some of the layers of healing that need to occur. And if we're not being real with ourselves about that, we're probably not really going to get through as clearly or as succinctly as we could if we really allow ourselves to open to that. And asking for help, like I'm just sitting here like, oh God. Yeah, asking for help and accepting help are incredibly hard. And one of the hardest things that I had to do for myself, and I often think like that was part of why I got sick. I didn't know how to ask for help. I was too proud to let other people see some of the choices that I had made that were not exactly um, great decisions and choices, and like to be vulnerable that way and to not be like completely self-sufficient and self-sustaining, it's really hard. And again, I do think that's a lot of this journey is like learning how to do that, learning how to accept help and not take the world on by yourself. I often remember God didn't make other humans on this journey for us to do everything by ourselves, for us to hold everything into ourselves. If we weren't supposed to talk to other people and share our feelings, we wouldn't have a voice. We wouldn't have the ability to speak words and to share our feelings and our true nature with others. And so I really like how you express that, and giving somebody something to help you with, even if it's small in terms of the grand scheme of life, in the sense that you can have someone help change your sheets and get you fresh jammies and help you to do that kind of stuff. Like when someone is incredibly sick with this and probably a lot of other illnesses, those are the things that are the hardest to do. Self-care, taking care of yourself, cooking for yourself, cleaning for yourself, like just having the motivation to even be able to get up and do that kind of stuff is next to impossible for some of us when we go through this. Like I just remember being stuck on the couch and like crying to God, like, I can't even get up. I can't even get up right now. Like, I can't even feed myself. I can't go see my friends. I can't do what I want to do. Like, I just can't make myself get up. And I felt like the worst person for that and just like a really bad person. And so I really like that you have somebody there that was able to care for you and give you some love, but you allowed it to happen too, because that's not easy. Um, but yeah, the lymphatic system, breath work, all of those things that you mentioned are fantastic tools to support ourselves. And I'm a trained Ayurvedic practitioner, and a lot of that is in alignment with that practice, or that um, I don't know what word I'm thinking about. Modality is what I'm thinking. And it's just like, yes, you've got to really, self-care is huge. And I think that's also part of this for some of us who get sick, is that we're ignoring ourselves. We're not doing the self-care. We're not making ourselves the priority, which is why we get sick sometimes, because we've really burned ourselves down to the quick, and there's nothing left for us to give. We're just overgiving. And we have to really learn how to pour back into ourselves and to fill up our own bucket again so that we have something left to give to people. So,
Yes.
yeah, I love that stuff. Thank you so much.
Thank
And that's
you.
how many years of knowledge poured into like a 20-minute spiel, right? Like how long have you been
Right.
going through your journey?
My journey was 13 years. So 7 years undiagnosed. And that was when I ended up bedridden with the caregiver and I didn't know my name.
Mm.
And then 6 years of treatment is what it took me to get my life back. And, a lot of the things that I mentioned earlier, I didn't necessarily learn in the beginning of my journey, right? Oftentimes I had to find out the hard way, like, why can't I get something under control? What can I do? I only have so much money to feed to these doctors or therapists or whatever it may be, kind of brainstorm myself and lots of research. And back then the library was my best friend. I mean, I was always in the library just getting books. I couldn't afford to just buy all the books I thought I wanted to read, right? And so it was a great resource for me just to do my own research and be my own advocate, because the bottom line is, right? And we know that we have to be our own advocate. We cannot just put our lives in the hand of somebody else. Yes, we need to trust our practitioner. Yes, we need to do a lot of things, right? But the end of the day, we are the ones who is going to take care of ourselves, and we're the ones that's going to allow our bodies to heal. And so We just really have to get in tune with us and what's going to work for us.
Very well said. Very well said. That is one of my biggest lessons too, is just learning how to be my own best advocate. And it's hard because again, that's like putting yourself first, putting yourself as the main contender of what needs to really get fought for. And it's like, oh, I don't know how to do this. Like, this is hard. This is really a difficult thing for me to do. And many times before I was like a people pleaser and a yes person, and I would just kind of go with the flow, what other people needed from me. And you really have to dig your own heels in and say, absolutely not. I can no longer do that anymore. I am at my limit. I really have to pull back and pull back into myself and fix myself and figure out ways to make that work and self self advocacy, but also doing like the research is hard when your brain's broken. Like it's really hard if you can't even remember your name and you're trying to read books and figure out how to fix yourself. And oh God, that was a really big part of this journey too, just trying to figure out how to do that well. And there's better days for your brain energy to be working and days that your brain's just not going to be there to support you. And just know that that's normal. Like, don't give up on yourself if you're not able to read. I did a lot of stuff in the beginning on audiobooks because I couldn't read. And even doing it that way, I still struggled a lot to retain some information and just know that whatever happens, the stuff that your soul needs, the stuff that your body needs will stick with you. Because there's so many things that I learned through this process to like heal yourself. But every now and again, I'd come across something in my reading or talking to people or whatever that'll be like, ah, that that thing right there, like it keeps coming back to me, and I'm like, okay, I've got to do something about that because it keeps coming into my mind and my being like, oh, all right, I really need to do rebounding. I really need to look into that. I really need to look into infrared sauna. I really need to look into breath work because that's what if you allow yourself to get quiet enough with self, and meditation is a huge thing for me on that. It's like you'll hear what you need, but you have to let your body talk to you and you have to acknowledge it. And that's hard for people sometimes because we're going so quickly. We're worrying about everything. We're stressed to the max. We're whatever it is. And like, give yourself that space and grace to really hear what body is saying to you. And again, for me, it was more of like an intuition where something, again, I would grab onto and be like, I need to do that. So just know when you're going through your journey, if there are certain things that are calling to you that way, try them. Don't worry about everything else. If it just sort of is like, but that one thing sticks to you, just grab that one thing and go with it. And you build off of that. And you're hearing Tanya, she was on a 13-year journey with this. I was on a 14-year journey. I'm still on a journey with it. Like we all probably will be forever and ever. And Rome wasn't built in a day. That's another one of my things that I always tell myself. Rome wasn't built in a day. You're not going to get better overnight. A lot of times I think it takes almost equally as long to get better as it did for you to really dive into the depths of hell. And it's okay. You just have to be patient. That was another good lesson. Patience and allow yourself to learn what you need to over the process. Try not to force it as much as you want to feel better immediately. It is a journey. It is a progression. It is something that you're just going to keep building strength through and get better and better. So be kind to yourself through the process.
Perfectly said.
Yeah, a lot of words there, but yes, thank you. Um, so Mr. Fred,
Yeah.
now you have again a little bit of a different perspective in terms of where you're coming into the Lyme space, which I really applaud because it's hard enough when you're doing it yourself, but then to care so much about this as somebody who's not actually felt it internally himself in his own body, and to have as much love and care for what you give back to this community is really, truly applaudable. And I appreciate you so much from that perspective. You've written a book about this to help survivors and family members of the ones that are how to support people the best. And I love that book. I've read it a couple times now. I've got it back here on my shelf is what I'm like pointing back to. But um, it is a really great tool. And I think if I understand, it's probably one of the only tools that is out there for people to latch onto to understand how to really help support somebody through the Lyme space. So can you share again a little bit like how long have you been in Lyme space, and then some of your ideas and tips as to how to help maybe support someone or even things that you know of that will help people to heal.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anne, for inviting me to be on your show, and it's great to see Tanya as well. What I want to talk about is really based on Tanya's last tip. As I was listening to her beautiful tips, the last one fits in exactly with why I'm here talking to you. In the spring of 2021, I had someone in my life who had chronic Lyme disease, and I decided I needed to learn more about chronic Lyme disease and why it is and why people get it and how they care for it. Uh, I like to say that I had someone in my life, and my mission in life was to keep this person out of stress and to know where the best gluten-free pizza was. So, as someone who was and I never thought of myself as a caregiver, but I had someone in my life that I cared for and loved, and I wanted to understand really what this disease does and why I did it and what it's all about. Not why I did it, but what it's all about. Interestingly, I wrote a book. It's called Love, Hope, Lyme: What Family Members, Partners, and Friends Who Love a Chronic Lyme Survivor Need to Know, and subsequently created the podcast, the Love, Hope, Lyme podcast. And I post the show every other Monday and have had like over 1 million downloads of the show. But interestingly, when I wrote Love, Hope, Lyme, I don't have Lyme. I thought I was writing the book for family members, partners, and friends. And I realized when I dove into understanding what Lyme is all about, I realized I knew maybe 5% of what there is to know. And I didn't know when I first started researching that there were co-infections. And I didn't know that Lyme literate medical doctors were doctors who were there. I didn't realize the political history of Lyme disease. I didn't realize how expensive it was. I knew that insurance didn't cover it once beyond the initial testing or the initial antibiotics. I didn't realize the isolation. I didn't realize the mental side that came with it as well. And when I dug in, I really thought that I was writing my book again for family members, partners, and friends. My audience for my podcast and the book, I'm going to say, is 95% chronic Lyme survivors who are looking for ways to get more support. And that's interesting that Tanya had brought that up as her fifth tip. I have extended my social media outreach by thousands, and I'm going to say 95, with the exception of advocates. I've gotten to know a lot of advocates. Maybe they had a family member, a partner, or a friend, and that's why they decided to pursue a career or at least a heavily involved volunteering side in chronic Lyme organizations like the Global Lyme Alliance or Project Lyme or LymeDisease.org, if you will. And I've also been in contact with a lot of mothers of teenage children who unfortunately have Lyme disease, and that is quite devastating what can happen to teenagers. But again, I learned a way that, like I said, it's 95% of my audience are Lyme survivors. And I had heard a stat. What actually happened was in the summer of 2021, I decided to learn more and I went on Facebook. And one of the first groups that I came across was Tanya's group, the Lyme Conquerors group. And I just started reading all of the posts that people were making and the conversations. And I had no exposure to this world, and I was blown away what people were asking each other. And have you tried this? Do you know a doctor here? Have you tried this treatment? And I was stunned by all of this. And I just started looking at them and reading and reading. Actually, Tanya can recall, you mentioned my Sales Game Changers podcast. I run a global organization for sales leaders, and I do a very popular podcast called Sales Game Changers. One of the things in sales is getting past adversity, things along the way that are stopping you from being successful. The very first Lyme related Sales Game Changer show I did was with Tanya, her partner in Lyme Conquerors, a guy named JP David, and a guy named Greg Kirk, who wrote a book called, what was Greg's?
The
I know his
gratitude
book,
curve. And then he has a
Gratitude.
second one. I can't recall what the name is,
Yes,
but
the
yes,
gratitude
gratitude curve.
curve. And we recorded a show in July of 2021. And, the three of them talked about how they got past their journey of treatment, et cetera. And they got to a place where they were giving back. They all were giving back either through charitable things or organizations or whatever it might be, or building communities like Tanya did with Lyme Conquerors. And we did a great show. And eventually, you became a guest. You know, you're an excellent selling professional, and you have Lyme disease. So how did you continue to get past it? Along the way, someone had told me that they estimate that 75% of committed relationships where someone has Lyme disease will terminate. And that their estimate was that 95% of the time it's the spouse or the non-Lyme person who says, I'm out of here. You know, you're always in bed. You're not who you were. You're not making any money because you can't work. You know, this ain't what I bought off on. I was the other side of that. I was that small percentage that uh, was devoted to a Lyme survivor. And I guess the reason that I've done this is just to bring that love back into the community. So I just want to talk for a second or two about Tanya's point. And people have been reaching out to me for years. I know they reach out to the two of you as well, asking for advice, resources, and it's quite remarkable that how even people with Lyme disease, Lyme survivors, how limited their knowledge is sometimes. For example, I went to a networking event. I'm based in Northern Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. And I almost invariably I'll bring up, my Lyme connection because it's always a good conversation starter, and somebody always knows somebody, a sister-in-law or a niece or something, or a coworker's wife. And a lot of times I'll meet people who have Lyme disease. And I was at a networking event. Again, we're doing today's interview in November of 2025. This would have been October of 2025. And I knew someone there knew I knew the Lyme disease. They introduced me to someone who had Lyme disease, and they were 3 years into their journey. And I said, well, who is your LLMD, Lyme literate medical doctor? And they said, I've never heard of that term before. I'm just going to my GP, my general practitioner. And I was like, well, I'm sure that they're doing their best and they're trying to support you, GP, no disrespect, but there's a type of doctor known as a Lyme literate medical doctor who's been specifically educated on aspects of treating chronic Lyme disease. And then I said to her, what are some of the co-infections? We all know that Lyme is a tick-borne disease, and there's upwards of 24 other diseases that are transmitted by ticks. And those where a lot of the complications come in, things like Bartonella, Babesia, if you may. And she said to me, what are you talking about? And I said, well, I'm sure you have more than just Lyme disease, because if I talked to one of the top Lyme doctors in the world once, who said to me, if it was only Lyme, Borrelia, then we would have cured this a long time ago. They said it's the complications that come on with the other tick-borne diseases, most specifically Bartonella and babeviosis. And she was like, I don't know. I don't know if I have any co-infections. And I'm like, you probably do, which is again another reason why you need to seek more support. So it's such a complicated disease. And, we use the analogy, if you break an ankle, every doctor from Sydney, Australia to Saskatchewan to Sacramento to, Silicon Valley, they're going to take an MRI or an X-ray. They're going to put you in a boot for 6 weeks. They're going to tell you to rehab and to watch reruns of Lost, so that you recover. Everybody with Lyme has different complications. Part of the problem is because you just both said you both had Lyme disease for years before you were officially diagnosed with Lyme. And unfortunately, the bacteria and the parasites related to the co-infections will go all through your body. And of course, if they cross the blood-brain barrier, there's a lot of challenges there. And then what is your genetic makeup? And what is your family history? And what are things that have happened to you along the way? What are traumas that you've had to deal with as related to maybe things in your childhood? Tanya, you've gone through some amazing things, which we don't need to talk to on the show, physically where you've lived, that has caused major upheaval and relationships and whatever they might be. There's no shortage of complications. So my main message is the messages that Tanya gave were great. And the ones that you bring out on the show, Anne, are fantastic. It's find the support. You know, people want to support you. They don't necessarily know how, because like Tanya said, you're not. It's difficult to communicate what do I need to family members, partners, friends. I wrote a book about it. So go find my book, by the way. As you both know, I've given out the PDF of Love, Hope, Lyme for free since day one. I've given out over 5,000 copies. And I don't have anything else to sell. You know, I'm not a doctor. I run a sales organization, but figure out ways. Go to the Facebook groups. There are a couple. When I wanted to learn more, I typed in Lyme into Facebook. There's 1,000 groups that appear. Almost every state has a group. Tanya, of course, you had a great one. There's others with tens of thousands of people. There's a lot of them located in various countries, Australia, Sweden, etc., Germany, England. So there's a lot of groups out there with people who want to support you, who want to help you. And it is very difficult, Tanya, like you mentioned, to communicate. And, some people don't want to let the world know that they have Lyme. It's, having all these challenges in life because you were bitten by a tick when you were walking through a park. There's no shame in having this disease that just because you were bitten by a tick, just because you were bitten by a tick walking through Central Park or riding a kayak in the Ozarks or walking on the beach in San Diego, right? There's
Doing
no
yard
shame
work
there.
in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, or obviously, all through Pennsylvania and where I am in Northern Virginia, Loudoun County is one of the ground zeros. And Lyme disease is everywhere. The first entity that reviewed my book, Love, Hope, Lyme, was the Lyme Disease Association of Australia. What happens with Lyme disease in Australia is it's criminal. So figure out ways to ask for help. I have a section in my book about things that family members can do. Take the children, out, go to the PTA meetings, cook dinner, take out the trash. There's no shame in not doing the dishes. So I just want to applaud you both. I'm very grateful that we're friends, that I've gotten to meet you, and I want to applaud you both for the energy that you have in an energy draining disease to devote time to helping others through your podcasts and through your messages. And I just want to acknowledge you both for that.
Thank you, Fred.
Thank you, Fred. Likewise, it truly, this journey takes a village, right? And so I'm just so thankful that you guys are part of my village.
Likewise, very much so. It's a lot better to know that you've got strength in numbers. And while not everyone wants to announce to the world that they've got it, that was like the first thought in my mind was like, I've got to tell people about this. I've got to warn them about this. I've got to explain to them the dangers about this, what this looks like, because there's so much confusion about that even. I mean, it's called the great imitator for a reason because it looks like so many other illnesses. There's up to at least 100 symptoms of Lyme disease, let alone then we layering co-infections with that. Like, it's really endless. And I just didn't want people to feel alone or to not have to go through what I did and spend all the money that I spent to fix myself, like time, energy, decades of my life, whatever it is. And it's just really nice to know that there are people like you on this planet that really care and want to make this world a better place and want to do your best to try to protect people or just, again, educate them from having to go through this experience themselves. And um, that's, again, one of the many beautiful things of this is that there are people like you on this earth. And in a time where we're all thinking like the world's going crazy and there's so much hard things happening on the planet, there are also a lot of beautiful, good things happening on this planet. And we're proof of that. And I'm really grateful for it. Yeah. So, you guys, if you're interested to connect more with Tanya and Fred, they are definitely very open to that. They are very vocal and um, visible on social media. You can find them. Tanya, where is the best place to find you?
On Facebook, I have a private group, Lyme and Beyond with Tanya, and even on my personal group, not that people always want to hear about Lyme disease if you don't have it, but it's mostly just spreading the awareness because we don't know what we don't know. So if I keep popping things in my friend's feed, whether they get tired of it or not, if something ever happens down the road, maybe they can be that saving grace for somebody because of the knowledge that they learned.
Yeah, maybe it could save somebody's life. So take this seriously because this lately there's been a whole thing on alpha gal in the news, and a gentleman who was a year older than me died from anaphylactic shock, and people are reaching out to me like, is this real? This can happen. This is something that can as a result of it. And like, yes, unfortunately it is. I know all too many people who have unfortunately left this earth from t Lyme and tick related illnesses, and the alpha-gal syndrome is something that is unfortunately becoming a little bit more widespread. But in places like Nantucket, they've had to redo their whole socioeconomic system and cater towards this huge population of people. I forget how many people now in Nantucket have alpha-gal, but all the restaurants there have an alpha-gal friendly menu. They've had to redo everything to cater to these people because, again, they have such a high population of it there. And know also that that gives you an allergy to mammalian products, typically red meat and dairy items. But there's a lot of medications, which I didn't realize, that are made with products from mammals that you can then have an allergic reaction to that as well. So you really have to be mindful. If you're not familiar with this case that's in the news right now, it's a guy who was camping and he got really sick overnight after I don't remember exactly what they ate that night. And he told his son he thought he was dying. And then the next day it sort of had cleared up and resolved. And then maybe 2 weeks later, he was at a barbecue and he ate something again, and consequently he died. And it took them, I think, 10 months to figure out what happened to him. And they finally uncovered that he had alpha-gal syndrome and was having an allergic reaction, and his body just, it was like 700 times the level of what could be tolerated in a person's body, and he died. And, that's very disturbing, and it's getting a lot of press and news coverage. But I had another friend, she was hiking and she was vomiting so profusely. She was in a canyon. She was vomiting so profusely she couldn't even hike herself out of the canyon. And they had to medevac her out of the canyon. And they couldn't tell her what was wrong with her. And she was sick off and on like this for a long time. And I suggested to her to get tested for tick-borne illness, as had her mother, because she's a pretty avid outdoors person. And sure enough, she had alpha-gal syndrome. So thank God she didn't die, but she had been sick for a really long time and just couldn't figure it out. There was no rhyme or reason to her. So if you know someone who's vomiting a lot for no reason whatsoever, I would again encourage you to get tested for alpha-gal specifically. But if you have unanswered health issues going on in your body, and they're not able to give you an accurate diagnosis, I would strongly encourage that you get tested for Lyme and tick-borne illness. And we didn't really touch on this so much so, but the standard two-tier testing, the Western blot and the ELISA test, are maybe 50% accurate. So while it's a good starting point, as Fred had mentioned, it's generally covered by insurance. It's not the end all be all. So just be mindful that there is more specialized testing available, but unfortunately, you generally are left to pay for that out of pocket. At a minimum, it'll be a couple $100 all the way up to maybe $3,000 to $4,000, depending on what kind of screening and testing that you get. But it is well worth it to get an answer if you, again, are suffering with unanswered health challenges. So, thank you both for being here today, again, for caring about things as much as you do, for spreading awareness. Fred, also, too, how would people get in touch with you before I hop off of that?
Yeah, they can find me on most social media, obviously Facebook. I'm also very active on LinkedIn and have met, I don't know, hundreds of people on LinkedIn as well. So not too hard to find me.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think actually we connected on Facebook, but I know that you're very active on LinkedIn too. And again, both of these individuals have their own podcasts, which are wonderful, do their best to spread education and awareness. Tanya has a lot of things that, in my opinion, don't relate just to Lyme. It could really be applicable to any chronic illness, because when we're going through something like this, we're getting any kind of healing information that we can get is going to be beneficial. And Fred, your show is really wonderful and generally inclusive of guests that, again, will help people to garner a different perspective of what it looks like with Lyme and how to help themselves and hopefully have some hope with your title there, Love, Hope, and Lyme, and just better inspiration to continue on in their own struggles. So thank you both for being here. And again, I really look forward to sharing this episode with everyone. It's been wonderful meeting you in person, and I look forward to our continued friendships.
Thank you so much.